His idea, he's going to set off from Spain. He's going to go south. He knew how far south India. Here's India over here. Before Columbus, you know, you would sail here through the Mediterranean and you would cross the land here or cross the land here, and you'd get back on the water and sail over to India, where the spices that came from these islands were being sold in India. And people were starting from Portugal to sail down around Africa. They didn't always know this, that you could get there. But the Portuguese became rich sailing around Africa to get to India. That way they didn't have to go through here where they had to pay to be allowed to cross the land. They had to pay for safe conduct. But Columbus thought, well look, if I just go, the earth is really small. If I sail down here to about where India is, to this line here, I sail down to here and I go a couple thousand miles to here, I will get to India, right here. And he got there, and he found some people. He said, I got to India. What did he call the people? Indians. Indians. Did the people want to be called Indians? No, they still don't understand why. Why are you calling us Indians? After people started to figure it out, they said, these islands aren't anywhere near India. Well, let's call them the West Indies then, because that's the west way of going to India. They still hadn't quite figured it out, some people. The scholars said, you're going to sail to here. None of them knew about any of this land being here. So he was lucky he was able to get some islands here and get to something. But if you look at the earth, and you don't know there's land here, why, he's going to have to sail all the way across here. We're talking more than 10,000 miles off before you get to India if you go west. So it's a long voyage. That's what the scholars were trying to tell him. And if you know what here was Ptolemy's map, it didn't have anything here, but it had basically ocean out there that you would have had to cross all the way to get to, you'd have to work your way through here to get to India. So that gives you a bit of the context of what the argument was about. All right. So you can view the PowerPoint lecture there, and the point is made in the PowerPoint. Read pages 1 and 2 of the handout, and I'm going to start in on the science of the alternative explanations of behavior. We need to understand what's an explanation. That's a kind of what's known as a scientific theory. And what are the criteria for a theory? It has to satisfy, first off, it's a set of statements. And so we need to understand what's meant by a statement. And it's going to satisfy, it's a set of statements that are used to explain why something happens. So we have certain things that happen. If I drop this, it falls. And you could ask, why did it fall? Why did it do what it did? So it's a set of statements that answers the question why, and it's got to satisfy criteria. The first one is it's deductive. And that means you could deduce the phenomena to be explained from the explanation. The second criterion is that it's meaningful. And by that I mean it's not meaningless. And I'll be telling you maybe by next time or by the end today what we mean by meaning. It's got to be predictive. If you knew the explanation in advance, you would have predicted the thing to be explained. It's causal. That means you understand what caused the thing to happen that you're trying to explain. So we're going to need to talk about prediction and causation, which are different things in here. And finally, it's general. We're going to understand what these criteria mean over the next couple of lectures. We'll get started on that. Should be able to get to meaning by the end today or beginning next time. So what do we mean by statements? Well, there's three kinds of statements that people can make. Why did somebody do what they did? We're going to offer statements. Statements come in three general types. There are definitions. And definitions are statements of equivalence in language, how we're going to use words. There are logical statements. These are statements whose truth is tested by analysis of the meanings of the words. And there are empirical statements. Those are statements about the world. Those are statements that are descriptive of what's actually happening or what is the case in the world. So let's look at an example of a definition. This is a statement of equivalence. It means that we can use one word to refer to a set of ideas that otherwise require a lot of words. So we can use one word to quickly refer to a collection of ideas. So we'll take a simple example. Let's say a bachelor is defined as, now sometimes people will use the word loosely speaking. They may say a bachelor is. And when you use the word is, it's not really clear to everybody that you're defining the word. You might be saying something about it. But I'm going to try to be a little more precise here for you. Bachelor, put quotes on it. The word bachelor is defined as a member of the set. We use braces here to identify it. Human and male and never married. What do I mean by this symbol here? This is the symbol for and in logic, or a conjunction. Also, the word set intersection is used for this symbol. So what we mean when we say and is that to be a member of this set, you have to be human and male, not just human or male. So human and male and never married. What do we mean by never married? We mean they're not married now and they weren't married before. There could have been somebody who was married before and their wife died, so they're a widower, they're not a bachelor. Or somebody who was married before and is divorced, we'll call him divorced. We're not going to call him a bachelor. But a person who is never married and human and male, like this newborn baby, male, never married, a bachelor. Okay, that person would qualify. So this symbol represents and or set intersection. In set theory, we can diagram the set of everything. Some things are human. Not everything is human. This thing is not. Okay. Some humans are male. Almost half of them. A lot of things that are not human are male. There are dogs and sheep, goats, and other creatures that are male. So some things are male. What do we mean by human? What do we mean by male? Well, it's the question of what do you mean by male as opposed to female. You'll take Psych 312 for that. That's the psychology of sex, and they'll also talk about gender. There's 9 definitions of gender. Okay? There's external genitalia, there's internal genitalia, there's hormones, there's sexual preferences, there's gender identity, that's what the person feels their gender is. There's their role in society, what society believes they are. There's what's on their birth certificate, what's in their genes, right? I think I just came up to 8. There must be a 9th one too. Genetic, hormonal, role. Anyway, there's 9 definitions there. So human, male, and these things don't always agree with each other. And then among the humans, some are never married, but not all of them are male, right? There's females that have never been married. So there's human, male, and never married things. This pen, maybe it's male, it's not human, it's never married. These are the bachelors. They have to have all those characteristics. Have to be humans, and they have to be never married, they have to be male to be called a bachelor. All right? This symbol refers to union, or in English. And to be a member of the union of A and B, you have to be either A or B or both. Now in English, the word or is a little bit mysterious because sometimes you say, are you male or female? And the person says yes. And they're right in logic because they're either, in this case, they're either male or female, right? Either you give me my wallet back or I'm going to punch you in the nose. The person gives him the wallet back, you punch him in the nose. The person is surprised. You say, why are you surprised? They said, either give the wallet back or you'll punch me in the nose. You didn't say both, but in logic, it refers to both. It's part of the union. Sometimes people use the word and when they mean or, when they mean the union. Women and children to the lifeboats. They mean women to the lifeboats and children, not just those who are both female and children, which would just be the girls. Women, adults, all ages, and children, which includes the boys, okay, to the lifeboats. So they mean or, women or children to the lifeboats. But in English, we use these less precisely than they do in logic. So in logic, and is going to mean the conjunction. It means you have to have both characteristics, and or means a union, which means you either have one or the other or both are included in the union. Okay. There's an example of a definition. Now, a logical statement is a statement whose truth is known a priori. And by a priori, we mean in advance. We mean ahead of time. But by an advance or ahead of time, in advance with respect to what? With respect to making observations of the world in principle. Not necessarily in practice, in principle. So a priori knowledge is what's known without having to go out and look for anything or check anything or know anything. It's what's known from the analysis of the language. For example, suppose I said, all bachelors are unmarried. What do we know about that statement? Is that statement true? Do you know it's true? We don't need to go out and do a survey, do we? Because if they were never married, they're unmarried now, right? So, all bachelors have never been married, which means they're unmarried. So we know that all bachelors are unmarried. A priori true. So we can say that this is a priori true. Oh, somebody said, but some bachelors are married. What do we know about that sentence? A priori false. So we know that this one is false. Because they can't both be married and unmarried at the same time. Now somebody's going to say, yeah, but I met this guy in a bar and he said he was a bachelor and it turned out he had a wife. In fact, he had two. That person was not a bachelor. We have another term for that. It's called a liar. What do you know about liars? Well, we know politicians, right? How do you know politicians are lying? Their mouth is moving, right? Their lips are moving. So, all so-called, all people who say they're bachelors aren't necessarily bachelors. Right? That's a statement about the world. Do you need to do a survey to find out if this statement is true? Do we need to apply for a grant, to do research and collect data and find out if bachelors are married or not? We don't need to do that. So, this is known a priori. This is a statement that's a priori true. This is a statement that's a priori false. We know it from the meanings of the word. It's analytic. We've used analysis and logic. I'm going to be giving you a couple of rules of logic, but by logic I don't mean what sounds good, what's appealing to the mind, what tastes good to your brain. Oh, that sounds good. I mean using the rules of logic and applying it to the language. Okay? So by logical, I mean these statements whose truth is known a priori. Now empirical statements, their truth is tested a posteriori. And by a posteriori, we mean after the fact. Your posterior goes into the room after you do, unless you backed into the room. Posteriori means afterwards, or behind, or after making observations of the world, you know what's the case. So a posteriori knowledge is knowledge based on making observations. And it could be your observations, or it could be that other people made observations and they told you and you believe them. So they said they observed something, and so you're getting information that's a posteriori knowledge. How about if we said some bachelors are over 6 feet tall. What kind of statement is that? Well, we could check it. And probably many of you have already tested this. Right? We need to know what some means. Some means more than none for our purposes. It means it's not just the empty set. The set that has nothing in it is called the null set. And it's the set that has no members, it's just a set with nothing in it. And so if a set is not empty, we say it qualifies for the word some. So some bachelors are over 6 feet tall. What do we mean by over 6 feet tall? We mean we can put them up against the wall and put a thing there and we can measure against some standard definition of what a foot is. We've agreed on what a foot is. And this person is going to be higher than that. So that's what we mean by that. And I can tell you, this study has been done, and it's the case that there are some bachelors, males, never married humans, who are more than 6 feet tall. So this statement is a posteriori true. How many believe me? Some of you are skeptical. I see you're not raising your hand. You're thinking, I'm not sure if that's true till I check it. Okay, that's fair game, but you can check it and find out. See if you can find a bachelor or two that are over 6 feet. Human, male, never married. So this statement is a posteriori true. Suppose I write a sentence like this. A all bachelors are happy. Is that a posteriori true? A priori true? Some people would say it's a priori true. It's a comedian's joke on a stand-up. They would say, are you married or are you happy? I'm just looking at some data for happiness. Looks like people get happier in their life till they get married, and then it drops down a bit. I might have to pay for that later. All bachelors are happy. What do you think?
It's recorded.
Yes, she has it recorded, that's right. She got the record there. What do we mean by happy, though? Right, before we argue about this, one of the things you learn in college, you've probably had a course where they did this for you already. Some of you maybe are second semester freshmen. Maybe started in the fall, some of you. Define your terms. You heard that yet in class? They should always tell you to define your terms. Before you argue about anything, you better define your terms. Before you get in an argument, define your terms. Two guys are arguing. Pickles are good. Pickles are bad. Pickles are good. Pickles are bad. Somebody in the class says, define your terms. So the first guy says, when I say pickles are good, I mean I like pickles. The other guy says, when I say pickles are good, bad, I mean I don't like pickles. So the other person says, so you're saying you like pickles and you don't like pickles. You're not arguing about anything. There's no disagreement. You're just expressing your tastes. There's no issue to argue about. There's no disagreement. On the other hand, if somebody said there's a bachelor who's over 6 feet tall, and the other says no, he's under 3 feet tall, and the other says no, he's over 6 feet tall, they're arguing. They can resolve their argument by measuring. All right? But if one of them says, I like pickles, the other one says, I don't like pickles, if they're just saying, all right, pickles are good, pickles are bad, they're not arguing. So it helps to define your terms. Now we've defined bachelor here, but how about happy? What do we mean by happy? Well, we're going to need to have an operational definition. What's an operational definition? An operational definition is a definition that says how you're going to measure something. So among definitions here, this is a conceptual definition in language, and definitions are neither true nor false, they're stipulations. So we can say a definition is neither true nor false. If they're stipulations. Now some of you are going to be a little confused about that because you're going to say, but wait, I wasn't sure what bachelor meant, so I looked it up in the dictionary, and whereas I thought it meant a four-sided figure where all sides were equal, somebody else said, no, it has to do with a human male that's never been married, and so I was using the word bachelor when I was referring to what other people call a square. Well, that's just, making sure you're using words the way they are. And so in that sense, definition agrees with another person's stipulation. But in logic, we say they're neither true nor false. It's a statement about how we're going to use language. It's a stipulation of what words are going to mean and how we're going to use them. But an operational definition and you're going to read about operational definitions in Chapter 2 of Calit. An operational definition is a definition that states or specifies, let's make it clearer, the operations of measurement. If we're going to say somebody is over 6 feet tall, we're going to have a definition of how are we going to go about measuring if a person is over 6 feet tall. Operational definition says how we're going to measure something. How do we measure how happy somebody is? It's a bit tricky, isn't it? Measure happiness. Well, we're going to use the standard definition of happiness, the SDH.